What's up, everybody? It's a Tuesday. We got through a Monday. Now it's time for a Tuesday. I've tried to explain this. For me, there's no Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I do this every day. So hopefully you're enjoying your Tuesday. You know what? Let me double check. Yes, it is Tuesday. Sometimes I get my days wrong. That's how crazy it gets over here. As you can see on the screen, Golden Blue now has a PO box. That's right. We finally got it today. So I'm excited. Anybody want to send anything that represents your team? We're going to start doing mini helmets, get the shelving up for all that stuff. But it can be anything. It could be a hat. It could be a jersey. Whatever you want to send. That's the address right there. P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina, 29657. And we will display it in the background. So you can be a part of the show every single day just by sending me something. So there you go. We got Joey in the background. I'm going to bring on Jake Posey as well. I think we have a great show for you today. The video that I did earlier is doing great right now. A lot of people are interested in Oregon and Washington, what they're going to do next. And there were some Oregon reps in Chicago talking to the Big Ten, trying to figure out their compatibility in the Big Ten. However, the weird thing was the president of Oregon, the athletic director of Oregon, and Kevin Warren were not involved in those talks. So who exactly went to Chicago to talk on behalf of Oregon? I don't know. We're going to get into that as well. And of course, we're going to talk about Miami. Yesterday, I labeled the video, the SEC screwed up with Miami, and we didn't really talk about Miami that much. So we will talk about Miami more today as well. Before we get to the guest, y'all don't forget, please hit the like button. That doesn't even mean that you like the video or that you like me. It just helps the video hit the YouTube algorithm. And once that happens, it gets suggested way, way more. More people see it and click on it, and boom, that is how you grow your audience. Thank you and shout out to all those that have already done that. I know there's a lot of you that I can count on, but sometimes a little reminder doesn't hurt anything. All right, so let's see. We got Joey and Jake. What's going on, guys?
Joey, you got yourself muted, my friend.
Yeah, Joey.
He's going off on a tangent.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Yapping away with no sound.
I was saying, sorry about that. I am more excited for this show today because Jake's here with us than I've been for a show in a long time. I mean, Jake is awesome. Love Jake. So.
Well, that's just because I said that the dark horse of the Big 12 was West Virginia. So that's the reason.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay? I know what the deal
exactly.
Here, okay.
Well, plus it's perfect timing because I've been talking about Miami's choices that they might actually have a choice instead of being forced to choose a conference by default. They might actually have themselves a choice of whether they want to go to the Big Ten or the SEC. Now we all know that first things first, the grant of rights thing, that situation has got to get figured out. But assuming that does get figured out, which that's a big assumption, big, that's not guaranteed. I think Miami going to have some options on the table. We know that Miami and Florida State, they're both actually really, really close to gaining AAU status. Have you heard any word on that on the Miami front?
So I do know that is the situation. And I think that when we're looking at the SEC, I think that the SEC would be fine with Miami right now. I think Florida might not. Obviously, Florida Gators not a big fan of Miami, I don't think, in many respects. But I have heard that if that happens, that is one of the – I don't want to say it's a requirement because Nebraska just was added and then they lost AAU status. But it's definitely a strong indicator. And again, if you're thinking about the strategy of the Big Ten right now, big teams, big markets, that no offense to Cal, but they're not exactly a big team, but it is a big market. Get that market cap, get the Seattle market, get the Portland market, maybe add some South Florida down there, maybe get into SEC country, maybe try to do that. I think that big Kevin Warren's imagination is his only limitation at this point.
I would definitely agree with that. I think that shows us that Miami is actually thinking about the Big Ten. I mean, even if they don't necessarily get it, maybe they don't end up in the Big Ten. I don't know, but just them, pursuing it the way they are and being so close, it tells me that they are thinking about the Big Ten. And because of that first four list that the SEC put out, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, and Virginia, it kind of ticked some Miami fans off. They felt a little bit disrespected. So I'm seeing, for the most part, the vast majority of Miami fans actually prefer the Big Ten. How do you feel about that? Do you agree with that?
I would agree too. And again, I think that this comes back to that little known fact. And again, if you watch ESPN 30 for 30 had a series about the U, and they had a couple of them. And the Miami fans were really, there was a lot of animosity, and especially the players, towards Florida. And Florida's been a big voice there. And they're basically saying, well, at least Florida State will keep playing us. Florida has outright said they just don't want to. So what better middle finger to the SEC and to Florida than to get $100 million by going to the Big Ten and playing up there? It'll be really cool obviously it'd be cool if they had Notre Dame, they could have that game up there, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I think that, definitely Miami, that would be the ultimate middle finger to the SEC. Like, not only are we going to leave you, but we're going to get more money than you too.
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way. Anybody in the chat, if y'all have a question or a comment, or you want to make fun of me, best way to do that is the little dollar sign. That is the super chat button, the little dollar sign down on the bottom right-hand corner under the comments section. Anything you put in the super chat, we will put on the screen. If it's a question, we'll read the question and answer it to the best of our ability. If it's a comment, read the comment and address that. And, of course, if you want to make fun of me, hey, you're supporting the show, so we'll put it on the screen. So that's the best way to get our attention, is that super chat button. And our audience is actually very interactive, so I have to salute them on that. Anything new that maybe some of us don't know about with Miami? Is there anything as far as the team goes?
So as far as the team, I'm not so much aware. I do know that Mario Cristobal comes over from Oregon, and I do know this, and this was a big quote from who is the old head coach? Jimmy Johnson from the Miami Hurricanes. Yeah. And he said, getting speed at Miami has never been an issue. We can get defensive backs, we can get running backs, we can get wide receivers. That has never been an issue. There has been issues finding offensive linemen to come over to Miami. The best offensive line recruiter in the country, his name is Mario Cristobal. He is the new head coach of Miami. Just brought over, I forgot what the guy's name is, but I brought over a 5-star guy from IMG Academy. Nice. He was the guy who recruited Penei Sewell to Oregon. It might be in the early days. Now, I know that everybody with USC's talking, Lincoln Riley's going to win 10 games, go to the national championship their first year. Maybe pump the brakes on that. USC's more than likely still going to get pushed around in that division. Defensively, they're not going to be so great. Offensively, they should be pretty good. I think the same thing will happen with Miami. We had Joey had me on the show last week, and we were talking, and I think that if you look, first of all, I actually was just doing a quick little bit of research. If you look at the preseason all-conference members, it's like Miami's quarterback and then about 10 Clemson players. So I do still think that they're not quite there yet, ready yet. But it looks like if he can turn around recruiting, get some old linemen, always have some speed, they might not be a hot ticket to pick this year. I picked them as kind of like a surprise. But next year and going forward, they are going to be an absolute asset in the ACC.
I would definitely agree with that. In fact, I actually have Tyler Van Dyke on my dark horse Heisman Trophy watch list. I think it's going to have a breakout year. I have Miami going to the ACC championship. I think they lose to Clemson because it's in Death Valley, but I have Miami going 10-2, losing on the road to A&M and on the road to Clemson. Getting that rematch against Clemson in the ACC championship. Miami's going to be a good team, and it's always tough to beat a good team twice in the same year. So they're going to have, if things go the way that I think they will, Miami will have a good shot of going up against Clemson and perhaps beating them the second time, which is actually the more important time because you'd be ACC champs. How great of a feeling would that be, Miami ACC champs?
Dude, Miami ACC, they would go nuts. Now, the issue with Miami, and Joey, I'm sorry to cut you off, my friend. I'll throw it to you in a second.
That's all right.
But the thing about Miami, and the more and more I learned about conference realignment, the more and more I learn that it's Miami is, unfortunately, we just have to be honest with it right now. It is a fair weather city. Okay, it's the campus and the stadium are far away from each other. It's tough to get students out there to games. The campus atmosphere is not great, but if they're on, that place will fill out. If it's number one versus number two, and it's something like that, that place will be filled up. But yeah, I mean, I do think I'm actually really, really interested to see what this Clemson team looks like without Brent Venables. The last time we saw Clemson without Brent Venables, the WV behind you, that team put up 70 on them in the Orange Bowl. So I'm interested to see what Dabo looks like. I think this next year they're going to be super talented. We're not going to have to worry about them. They're still have lots of talent on their team. But going forward, no more Brent Venables. Dabo was a different coach pre-Brent Venables, and I think he'll be a different coach post Brent Venables.
Let me ask you this. All right. So I think that the next two teams that the Big Ten will add will be Oregon and Washington. I think beyond that, depending on if the grant of rights get figured out, the next two teams could be Florida State and Miami. If that happens, and this is why I titled this live show the way that I did, if that happens, I think the Big Ten can actually pass the SEC in brand recognition. Would you agree with that?
That's still tough. We got to remember it. We were on that stream recently, and every other championship for the last 15 years has been won by Alabama. So you got to overcome that. I do think that is still a looming. And again, Nick Saban just got himself a big old extension today. He got himself close to $100 million. I don't 100% disagree with you there, but brands, I mean, total viewership, it won't even be close. Total households, it won't be close. But if you're talking Florida State national championship within the last 20 years, actually, I think the last 15 years, and then Miami championships within the last 20, you add USC, you add UCLA, you add Washington, we had Oregon, who Oregon has been a contender. They haven't won a championship. Washington won one in 1990. So it's this, I will say this, it might not be even, but it will definitely close the, the SEC might not have as much money, but they're definitely better. That conversation will get harder and harder to make, I'll say. But I don't know about close because, again, that looming roll tide is in the background, just all those championships.
I agree with that. Now, okay, so I did a video earlier on top 15 fan bases. So if the Big Ten, well, they've already gotten USC. If they do also grab Oregon and Washington, and then in the future they can grab Florida State and Miami, they would have a lot of the top 25 brands. You're picking up USC, who's a top 10 in fan base. Oregon is number 7. I didn't realize that. I knew they had a lot of fans. That's a lot. Now, I know the SEC is picking up Texas, which is number 3. But if you break it down, if you include those 4 teams that I mentioned, and you include Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC, then here you go. For the SEC, you would have, let me look down the list here. You'd have the first fan base that pops up as far as biggest fan base is actually Florida at number 6. Then you'd have Alabama at that's number 5, excuse me. Alabama at number, no, that's right, 6. Alabama at number 8. LSU at number 11. Georgia at number 12. Texas A&M at number 13. Auburn at number 14. And Tennessee at number 15. That's a lot of brands, but and we're going by top 15 right now because it doesn't go beyond that. But for the Big Ten, you have Ohio State number 1, the number 1 fan base. Michigan number 5. Oregon, who would be in the Big Ten at that time, number 7. Wisconsin at number 9. USC at number 10. I think that rounds it out. I mean, if you go top 15, the SEC still has a quite a big edge. But if you go beyond that, Miami's a top 25. Florida State's a top 25. Washington's a top 25. I know Oklahoma for the SEC is a top 25. But the math, overall, the Big Ten is gaining more bigger brands as far as top 25 fan bases. So I would agree with you. I think it most definitely closes the gap. And honestly, I think the Big Ten can pull even with the SEC. I mean, Ohio State is the number 1 brand, number 1 fan base, number 1 viewership, number 1 everything. That's what helps the Big Ten tremendously. I also forgot to mention Penn State at number 4. That's a big brand. So they have some heavy hitters. It's just right now in the present time, the SEC is hitting them with volume, the amount of teams that they have in the top 25. But with the Big Ten adding Oregon and Washington, I'm 100% convinced that's going to happen. And then the possibility of Florida State and Miami, that's what makes me believe that they could eventually pass the SEC, because not only would they have the bigger fan bases, but now they're counterpunching the SEC with volume, because that's what the SEC has on the Big Ten right now, volume. They don't have the biggest brands. The Big Ten actually has the biggest brands, but the SEC has more volume. So if the Big Ten adds volume, like I think they will, that's the key. That's the way that I think that they can pass the SEC when it comes to brand recognition. Does that argument make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about, you put yourself in Kevin Warren's shoes, okay? So you're sitting back and you got an Ohio State championship a couple years back. You know, you were doing pretty good there. Michigan went to the championship, or went to the playoff, and they got beat. You know, you're thinking the fact, man, we've got one championship in like the last decade. The SEC's got a gazillion. You know, the ACC had one with Florida State and Jameis a couple of years ago. But what can we do to really close the gap there? Because you still have, you know, some limitations with recruiting. The big recruiting states are Florida, California, Texas, and then like Ohio and Pennsylvania. 2 of those are in the heart of the South. Texas and Florida, really easy to recruit there. And the big brands, I mean, Alabama, you know, Bryce Young was a running back or a quarterback from California. Najee Harris was a running back from California. They can recruit anywhere. So you're Kevin Warren and you're like, we can sit around and hopefully our 14 members that we have right now can organically grow. Penn State can get things going. Maybe Maryland can turn it around. Rutgers can get their head out of their butt. Things like that can happen. Or he's like, how about this? What if I just go and I get USC, UCLA? I get the 2 members who are in the national championship for the Pac-12. They've had 2 invitees to the college football playoff, Washington and Oregon. I'll get both of them. And then the ACC's coming up. You know, what says we can't just go into the South and take those teams? So I think that Kevin Warren, in his mind, he's like, you know, I right now, if we stick my 14 against their 14, but minus, you know, USC, UCLA, Texas, and Oklahoma, I don't know how we stack up. But if I get to 20, if I get to 21, if I get to 24, you know, because at that point, if I just take those brands, turn into a national conference, I have my West pod. I might even have a South pod. One that's interesting, if we're talking about Cal, I don't, and this is a random one, but just stick with me here. If we're talking about Cal, because in my opinion, and I know in both of your opinion, that makes no sense. They don't care about sports. Okay, they've got. Tony Altor is very clear. They have some elements named after them. Good for them. Okay, they're on the periodic table of elements. They don't really care about sports. One that's interesting: AAU status, big market in the South. Georgia Tech is that. Georgia Tech's in Atlanta. I don't think they add a lot sports-wise, but if you're thinking markets, if we're thinking Kevin Warren, I want to take over markets. I want AAU members, and I want potentially good teams. That's Georgia Tech is there. I know that they're just recovering from the fact that they had Paul Johnson in a triple option team for recently. So they're moving past that. They thought it could make it work. It only is working for Air Force. By the way, Air Force is favored in every single game this year. By the way, just everybody keep that in mind. They don't play very many teams, but they are favored. But Kevin Warren is probably thinking, you know, I know what I'm going to do. This is an arms race. I suspect in the future that if the Big Ten gets to 24 teams, I don't see the SEC staying at 16. Now, I do think that they're moving much faster than them, and they may lock out the West Coast. The SEC and the ACC, that like you said, that grant of rights is giving them the weirdest sense of security. It's security from being rated. It's not security in terms of like things are going to be great for us going forward. It's basically once this thing is done, you and I both know the top 4 teams are by Boston College, Wake Forest. Good luck finding a home in the American. So yeah, I think Kevin Warren, though, back to your original point, he is like, I am going to absolutely corner the market here.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think what we're seeing here is maybe his first thought, we're going to go west. I think his next thought is he wants to go south. And maybe that's why he's kind of, because there were rumors that the ACC and ESPN were going to retalk their TV deal thing and maybe shorten it, and the grant of rights was going to get figured out or whatever. So he's like, all right, we want Oregon and Washington, and we want them pretty bad, but we've already went west with USC and UCLA. Let's see what happens with these grant of rights and see if we can pick off some big brands, out of the ACC. And Florida State and Miami that would be two home run hires for the Big Ten. They'd have markets, out west and then down south. Because if you look at the SEC, they have a ton of big brands and they have a lot of success, but they're still just in the southeastern part of the United States. Now, they stretched a little bit with Missouri, now Texas and Oklahoma. They've had Texas A&M, but they haven't done the drastic stretch like what the Big Ten just did. And maybe that was a wake-up call for the SEC as well. And they're like, maybe we need to rethink staying sort of SEC. I mean, they're a little bit outside with those Midwest teams, but, maybe stretch a little farther west and, possibly fight for Oregon and Washington. I don't see that happening, but maybe the Big Ten has, at least made them think about it. I don't know. I like the strategy that Kevin Warren has. There's really no bad decision for him right now. Oregon and Washington, that's a home run pick. If you wait to see what happens with the ACC and the grant of rights go the way that you want them to and it opens up, you grab Miami, Florida State. That's not a bad decision either. So I think right now he's in a win-win situation. And, let's see if we can grab Notre Dame while we're at it, And if they grab Notre Dame, of course, that's the ultimate home run hit for the Big Ten. So Big Ten is in a really good situation, and that's not me saying that the SEC is in a bad situation. Of course not. They're in a great situation as well. But I think the Big Ten has really shocked some people. I've done a ton of conference realignment, so I covered that, and I thought it was a real possibility of the Big Ten getting USC, UCLA. I don't know, maybe just to tag along. But a lot of people were shocked with that. I'm like, don't be. They're big brands. They bring in a lot of money. It actually makes a lot of sense. Hey, now that we have over 100 viewers watching, tell everybody who you are and where they can find you.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. Joey, appreciate everything you've done, too, over there. My name is Jake Posey. You can follow me on Master Football with Jake Posey. At the end of the day, if you don't know, I did my best to try and keyword search my channel. Masters of Football brings up a soccer channel. Nobody likes soccer, so I wanted to make sure that we can address what my channel actually is about. Just look up Jake Posey. Jake Posey. You can find me. I've got there. We're creeping up on 600 subs. We're doing a pretty good job here. My channel is mostly about. I always open up. I love EA College Football. It's a video game that's coming out. It's going to be coming out next July. I'm big into college football. I also do college football videos, pro football videos, and Madden videos as well. I've been kind of leaning away from the pro football market. I think it's a little saturated, and I actually think that there's a lot of demand for college football, so I've been kind of leaning more into that. But check me out, anything like that. I have a how do I say this? I have my LLC set up. I'm going to be getting some sort of either Patreon or Locals account or something like that. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to be going towards some exclusive content, maybe some AMAs, things like that. But that's where our channel's headed. Please subscribe, okay? And like this video. Do it for Golden Blue Dude, okay? Like the video.
Exactly. And like I explained,
I want to ask him a question.
That's not saying you actually like us. It just helps the video. Go ahead, Joey.
I wanted to ask you a question, Jake. So let's say Oregon and Washington go to the Big Ten, okay? And that leaves Cal and Stanford and maybe Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, maybe two of those come to the Big 12. Without pointing to that flag behind your head, who would the Pac-12 pick up to keep going?
So I think that, unfortunately, if we're looking at the Pac, I think you already know where this is going, is that if they lose Oregon and Washington, it is all man for themselves, okay? Oregon State and Washington State are at the mercy. They will more than likely be absorbed into the Mountain West. Now, I do know this. I'm obviously a big fan of Boise State Broncos. Big fan of my Boise State Broncos. And there's a lot of Bronco fans that are a little worried about this realignment situation because if the Pac-12 dissolves, I think the four corners go to the Big 12. And I think that Oregon State, Washington State just get absorbed into the Mountain West. And then those four schools, the Bay Area, and then Washington and Oregon go over to the Big 10. The good hope, and this is what I'm leading here. This wasn't exactly what you asked, but I'm leading to this direction. For all the G5 schools that are hoping for, an invite, they're trying to build their program. Memphis is redoing the Liberty Bowl. Boise State's getting to 40K. South Florida and SMU have also been mentioned. San Diego State just got, Snapdragon Stadium. They're trying to have a good stadium out there. UNLV thinks that they're an asset somehow. Don't ask me how. Okay, no offense to UNLV, but offense to UNLV. But anyways, what's the end game for I think that honestly, if you look at the Big 10, they're trying to get to 20, 24, something like that. Let's just say they get to 24 teams, which is shocking. I don't think that the SEC is going to step back and be like, we're fine. 16, we're good. North Carolina, Virginia, no thank you. We don't need to worry about that. So I think that that's the hope, is that I think that we look like we're getting for 3 big leagues. I think that the ACC is being held together by a thread. Excuse me. The Pac-12 is being held together by a thread. The ACC is being held together by an ironclad lock that everybody, even those on the inside, are trying to break. So I think that, like I said, 4 corners, it's already been rumored. It makes a ton of sense. The only fans, I will let you know, BYU fans were super salty when Utah got an invite to the Pac-12, and they didn't. They did not like that at all. If you go to that market is the whole Salt Lake market is a BYU market. Utah does a great job. Don't get me wrong. But I'm telling you right now that is the only one that would be contentious. Arizona State make a lot of sense. Colorado already was in the Big 8 and then in the Big 12. So they would probably go back. But yeah, if once Oregon and Washington leave, it is absolute gangbusters. There's no allegiance to anybody there.
I think the only thing that hurts is Boise State's chance of getting to the Big 12 because before all this, picking apart of the Pac-12 went down, Boise State was actually super high on the list, for an invite to the Big 12. And then all this happened, and now the Big 12 is looking at, Utah, Arizona State, and Colorado. But I still think that Boise State's in a good position as long as the Pac-12 can keep their Power 5 status after Oregon and Washington leave. And maybe Utah and Colorado or Utah and Arizona State, combination of 2, maybe 4 teams, maybe the 4 corners go, all 4 of them. But the Pac-12 says, hey, Mountain West, if you merge with us, let us keep our name, and maybe we can keep our – because what's the – Tim, I keep forgetting. Instead of Power 5, what is the correct term for the Power 5?
So it's Autonomy 5.
There you go. Autonomy. As long as they can keep that label right there, then Boise State might actually be in good shape because they're actually one of the better brands in the Mountain West, so they would be included on that. Now, having said that, the Pac-12 would have to get over all their, eliteness and, we're better than you and all this other stuff because –
good luck with that.
Boise State is kind of in the same boat as West Virginia, not the greatest of academics. So if their survival instincts kicked in and not their elitist instincts, then Boise State is in a great situation because the Pac-12, what's left of it, merges with the Mountain West. That actually looks like a pretty decent, conference, especially when you compare it to the ACC. I mean, the ACC has some tremendous brands in there, but they also have a ton of dead weight in their conference as well. So if that happens, that's actually a really good situation for Boise State. But the chances of Boise State going to the Big 12 have absolutely plummeted over the past couple of months.
Yep, absolutely. And I actually, we have a USC guy here. So I'm interested to have this as a conversation here. UCLA, Cal Berkeley, UC Board of Regents, Gavin Newsom's puffing his chest up. Do we see any possibility that USC goes by themselves to the Big Ten?
No.
Okay.
Do you want me to go into detail? Look, you guys, you just
go
call
for it.
yourself. Did you just say we're going to listen to what kind of the politician's mouth? I mean, realistically, look, the guy is just flexing. He's looking for votes. As far as the regions are concerned, they technically have the ability to block it. But why would they? Because again, UCLA is one of their basically. I think the way Tony explains this, there's Berkeley and there's UCLA, right? And they're the flagship of the UC system, which is huge. And I mean, I don't know if we can call it elitism as much as just academics, guys. We can you can flip the coin you want, but USC and UCLA and Stanford and Washington make a truck ton more money through their universities and academics more than their athletics. And it is a brand. And again, one of the tinfoil hat people saying why USC has been so crap for the past couple of years, why they never hired an AD that was actually a professional AD, is because that the presidents and the academics didn't want to be known as a football school anymore. I mean, USC did make a huge rise in the national academic rankings as we started to tumble. So I mean, there's a lot to it. I don't think that UCLA is going to be stopped simply because, one, I think they have too much power. Two, I just don't think that they're going to want to hurt. It's going to help the brand is what's going to basically turn out to be. And I don't think Cal cares that much as a university about football. They just clearly don't.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
100%.
They're one of the best world-renowned research institutions. And, it's just the way it is. They're top 10, I think, nationally of world universities for research. So, I mean, this is the way it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Sam.
I've been saying all along.
I just want to give a quick reminder to the chat. Hold on, Joey. I want to give a quick reminder to the chat. Please hit the like button. It helps the video. You guys see everybody that's already hit the like button. We've already grown to 130, so let's keep it going. Hit the like button. It helps the video grow. And if you have a question for us or a comment or a little jab you want to stick in our ribs, best way to do that is the super chat button. That is that little $sign that you see on the bottom right-hand corner under the comments. Anything you put in that super chat will be put on the screen and addressed. And by the way, I saw Fester earlier in the chat saying, hey, Fester is a great supporter, Golden Blued. Wanted to give him a salute. We see you, Fester. Go ahead, Joey.
So I've been saying that that you wanted to get rid of the Pac-12. I've been saying this all along is to take Cal out. That would fold the Pac-12 up. I think the Pac-12, as long as Cal and Stanford and Oregon State, Washington State, and two of the Four Corners schools stay, I think the Pac-12 can survive by bringing in Fresno State, San Diego State, maybe SMU, and a few other schools. I believe they could survive. Will people look at them the same as they look at the other conferences? Probably not. But they would still be what would be considered a Power 5 team because of their A5 status. So.
No, the only thing I would say with that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I would just say, would you consider the names in the Big 12 bigger names in the schools that would be remaining in the Pac-12?
Oh yeah,
bigger than Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Cal. Yeah.
No, I'm saying we're talking about if Washington and Stanford, if Washington and Oregon leave for the Big Ten.
Oh yeah, well, of course. Okay, yeah. If you cut out, if you cut the legs,
but you'd be leaving Cal and Stanford in there, and probably two of the Four Corners schools at least, and then Washington State and Oregon State. So I think they could survive by bringing in San Diego State, Fresno State, SMU, and maybe another team or something. So.
Yeah. I just think that I just think these schools need to stay alive until 5, 6, whatever it is, 7 years from now, when this thing all really shakes up for good, and we see just the whole format change. That's probably the goal of those schools.
Which, by the way, earlier I heard somebody mention San Diego State, and I'm going to do a video on this, but I wanted to bring it up real quick. I was seeing some tweets earlier by multiple people that the Big 12 is interested in San Diego State. How now? Okay, the reason I bring up San Diego State is so if Oregon and Washington do end up in the Big Ten, and maybe a couple of the Four Corners go to the Big 12, one of the names that was being mentioned as a possible replacement would be San Diego State. That would throw a big monkey wrench in the Pac-12 as far as wanting to expand and maybe force them to merge with the Mountain West like we were talking about earlier.
Well, I think too with that is that if you see San Diego State, I think that the plane ride over to San Diego State goes over Arizona and goes over Arizona State too. And I think that if you put a foothold out there, not only take away their expansion target, but you could get the opportunity to have those schools be like, hey, by the way, you want to have a little Southwest corridor for us? We've got BYU not too far, from Arizona. You have those four corners out there are the Arizonas and then San Diego State. That is interesting. I also think that Brett Yormark, and you are on this a lot, you are on this basically saying like Brett Yormark needs to be aggressive here. And I think what's going to happen here is I think that if Kevin Warren is playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers, I think if Brett Yormark is smart, if the rumor was that if the Big 12 added 2 of the 4 corners, I don't know which ones exactly, but if they added 2, they would see a net increase in money. But if they added 2 more, they would see a decrease in the payout per team. I do think, though, that if the Big 10, if they get to 20 teams, I don't think the Big 12 is going to try and be like, all right, well, now let's get to 14. I think they're also going to be like, let's get to 20. Because remember, there's moves that add money, and there's moves that are strategic. I think that adding a Southwest corridor, maybe expanding up, maybe getting Boise State, I don't know. Okay, maybe not Boise State. But I do know that them targeting San Diego State would also kind of be like Arizona State, Utah. We already got a little group for you over there. And then you had mentioned before, 7 years from now when we have that the ACC most likely dissolution. I think there's a couple, maybe not top tier teams, but second tier teams that would probably fit in. Louisville, Pitt, Syracuse. Those would probably be targets for the Big 12 as well.
Yeah, I've actually been talking about that. Real quick. Quick apology to Tim. I should have asked if you were okay if I showed that super chat. It was a jab to you. I put it on. I thought I read it, but I didn't until I read it. So from now on, I'll make sure I get your blessing before I put it on. I should have asked you for that.
I don't care. Show it and make a comment, but let the show roll on. I mean,
right.
Listen, I'm all for if the guy is, as long as we'll throw money at you to be an idiot, that's fine with me. I'm just saying, let's not let him derail your show.
Okay.
Say,
that's the way I'll approach it.
You're making 8-year-old jokes about somebody. Well done, buddy.
Yeah.
Well done.
And
keep them coming.
You know what? I actually hurt myself on that one because I was letting the show roll on and then I mentioned it. So we'll just show it, move on. Not really, if they want to act childish, that's up to them. But to what y'all were talking about earlier, that's exactly what I've been talking about as far as, if the Big 12 does end up getting teams from the ACC, it's exactly those teams that you mentioned. I think Louisville would be great. I think Pitt would be great. I think an NC State would be great. Maybe a Syracuse. Although the Big Ten, honestly, the Big Ten might go after Syracuse. Syracuse has a top 15 fan base. So they have the potential to bring in big money, and their academics are really good. So if they passed up on Syracuse, that would be a great addition for the Big 12. And honestly, I know that I've complained a lot about West Virginia in the Big 12, but honestly, if we went out and got Louisville and Pitt, I would be 100% okay staying in the Big 12 forever, because the biggest gripe that I have about being in the Big 12 is not playing our rivals on a year in and year out basis. Or how about this? Even if they don't add them, let's get something going to where we can play them out of conference rivalry game every year. I mean, Clemson, South Carolina does it every year. Georgia Tech. There's a lot of out of conference rivalries that happen every year. I would be okay with that as well.
So do me a favor then, as a West Virginia fan, and then Joey here also can help out with this, because I have an idea, but I want to hear from you really quickly. Name your rivals and order them in most hated to not as most hated. So help me out with that. So if you had to play every team that you were rivals with, what would it look like?
Number 1 is Pitt, and I'm going to the Backyard Brawl this year. It's my first one, and people are like, "Oh, you're going to blue, dude. You're almost 40 years old. What happened?" Well, it's because of opportunity. There's been this decade gap, and then before that, I lived in upstate South Carolina, and financial situation not that great. So this is my first opportunity. So Pitt, number 1, and then there's a big gap. Virginia Tech. Now, Virginia Tech's a great rival, and if you ask Southern West Virginians, they would probably actually say Virginia Tech because, Blacksburg is really, really close to the southern tip of West Virginia. But for me, that's the number 2 rival, okay? Number 3 rival would probably, and this is going to sound weird, Penn State. Now, I know we've never been in a conference with Penn State, but, man, from back in the day, and, it's been passed on from generation to generation, and we have scheduled a home-and-home, and it's being hyped up majorly. Penn State is number 3, but tied with number 3 would be Maryland. Maryland is a very underrated rival. The reason I have Maryland up so high is they've actually cost us several opportunities in joining the ACC in the past. I mean, they're actually one of the main reasons why we're not a member of the ACC. Whenever the ACC was founded, West Virginia was in the conversation as being one of the founding members, and Maryland said no. And Maryland had a lot of pull back then. And then the second go around, West Virginia came up again. Third go around, West Virginia came up again. Every stinking time, Maryland blocked West Virginia. And for whatever reason, they had a lot of pull, and they convinced the North Carolina schools to go against us, and that's what happened. So Maryland tied with Penn State for number 3. After that is where there's a little bit of a drop-off, but I'd probably say behind them maybe I would say kind of bunched up in the same group. I would say a Syracuse, Boston College, Louisville, and then Miami. So let's recap real quick. Pitt, Virginia Tech, Penn State, and Maryland, and then Syracuse, Boston College, Louisville, and Miami. And no, I don't consider Marshall a rival, nor do I consider Cincinnati a rival.
I will.
Well,
I'm gonna let you read your super chats. I'm gonna let you read your super chats, and I'm gonna give you my list because my list is a little different than his. But
okay, that's fair.
Same teams, but a little bit different. Go ahead and read your super chats there, Chris, and then I'll get to that. I'll tell them.
All right. Eric L., thank you for the $5 donation, says Big 12 is a JUCO league full of auto-admit AG schools. When is USC joining?
I think you're trying to take a shot at USC there. Trying to take a shot at our friend.
And the Big 12 at the same time.
Yeah, I know. Jeez.
Yeah.
John Waffle HTP, thank you for the $1.99 donation. Pitt will not go to the Big 12. You cannot say that for a fact. Things haven't happened yet. But for right now, yes, they're not going to the Big 12. But in the future, if things fall a certain way, they most definitely could go to the Big 12. David Cummings, thank you for the $2 donation. Penn State would be number 2 on the rivalry list. Yes, the older generations would most definitely put Penn State up a little higher than what I have them. And then Fester, hey, I mentioned his name. Appreciate the $10 donation, buddy. Week and 2 days, Dude Blue.
Yeah.
Dude Blue. Close enough. But yes, a week and 2 days. And every day that passes for that backyard brawl, man, I get jacked, more jacked every day.
I can't wait to watch you. It's been a while since the games have been on, right?
Oh yeah, and I'm going to be live streaming pregame tailgating and a lot of that stuff. So yeah, I'm excited.
I think if you had to choose the rivalries, the biggest rivalries in West Virginia history, for sure it's Pitt, and then by far Virginia Tech, in my opinion. Pitt and Virginia Tech are out there. I don't really consider Penn State a rivalry, and here's why. We played Penn State through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And through the 70s and 80s, Penn State was unstoppable. And they kind of lead us in the series 48 games to 9. 48 to 9. So, while it might be a rivalry to us, it sure isn't to Penn State. They kind of dominated us for a while. Now, if we played again now, I think we could, probably go 1-1 against them pretty, one game to one game. But back then we could not. But
because we only played them one time in New Mountaineer Field, am I correct? One time or 2 times?
No, we played them several times. We played them several times because we played them all the way up until the 2000s.
Really?
No, we played them every year up until the 2000s. Yeah, until we joined the Big East. Because Penn State was not selected to join the Big East.
Well, we joined the Big East in the early 90s.
Right. Right. I meant up until the 90s, not 2000s.
Okay. Okay.
So
got it.
we were going to join when we joined the Big East. Penn State. I can't remember if they didn't join or if they wasn't accepted. I think the Villanovas and schools like that kept Penn State out of the Big East, so they went to the Big Ten. But yeah, we played them all through the 80s, and then it ended in the 90s. Now, as far as my third team rivalry would have to be Miami. That was a hated rivalry. I mean, we just didn't like each other. It was one team or the other was always the Big East champions. It seemed like every year it was either West Virginia or Miami, and West Virginia, Miami, and it was back and forth. And every once in a while you'd sprinkle in a Virginia Tech. Very seldom did you sprinkle in a Pitt. I don't think you ever sprinkled in a Pitt. I don't think they ever won the Big East, did they? So you think so? Okay,
Sorry, I saw the super chat. Who did you say? Never,
yeah,
that you thought never won the Big East?
I don't think Pitt ever won the Big East, did they? Maybe once. Maybe once. But
That's
anyway,
that's a good question.
but the rivalry that always meant the least to me, but it did mean a lot to other people, and that was Maryland. Maryland never meant anything to me. We kind of dominated Maryland pretty much. So that one didn't mean a lot to me. Marshall will never be a rival of West Virginia. So. So that I don't worry about them. But Syracuse was a great rivalry in the 80s, especially when
90s.
they had a quarterback by the name of Graves when they
Donovan
were pretty
McNabb
good
in the
team.
90s.
As a matter of fact, and but Graves in the 80s, and they were number 1 or number 2, came to Morgantown, and there was a big fight, in that game, and one of our players, our quarterback, got hit, our safety got hit in the back of the head with a ball that Graves threw at him. Graves threw a perfect spiral with his head and hit him after he went out of bounds. And so it started a big fight, and I can't remember, but I think it was like 6 West Virginia players got ejected from the game. Only 1 Syracuse player did, and they started the fight. And it wasn't the player that started the fight that got ejected. They didn't eject the quarterback for throwing that ball and hitting him in the head. So it was kind of a big thing, and so Syracuse became a huge rival of West Virginia at that point. And at that point, they may have become our number 3 rival behind Pitt and Virginia Tech. So
I challenge people. I know a lot of fan bases say, "Oh, the refs don't like us," blah blah blah. But it's seriously been an uphill battle for West Virginia in a lot of these games because of officiating. I don't know why. So. I challenge people, try to catch some West Virginia games, and you'll see what we're talking about. It gets ridiculous sometimes. Fester is actually explaining what I missed. Thank you for the $10 donation, buddy. So that, and then what I said, the underscore dude blue is actually an emoji in the chat. I didn't know it would do that. LOL. My bad, golden blue dude. No, that's fine. I'm actually glad you explained it because I was very, very confused. So I guess it just translated into underscore dude blue. There it is. But yeah, Syracuse, man, and I've said this in a few of my videos. Syracuse was one of those teams, and it's kind of, if you think about it, it's kind of translated over to the ACC. You could be really, really good and Syracuse be really, really bad, and you head up to that dome and they just find a way to beat you. I mean, they've done it to Clemson, they've done it to Virginia Tech, they've done it to Miami, they've done it to a bunch of teams. So every year, and it seemed like it was on rotation too. What really sucked is the year that we got Syracuse at home was the year that we had to go on the road to Miami. And then the year that we got Miami at home, we had to go on the road to Syracuse. So it was always like, oh, man, can we ever catch a break? But I especially hated the years that we had to go on the road to Syracuse because that dome was pure hell. I mean, it was a nightmare. I mean, there's not that many fans in there. I mean, I think it seats like 55,000. But, man, that place gets loud and that team gets jacked. They definitely feed off the crowd. Let me get to this other super chat. David Cummings, thank you for the $5 donation, says WVU lost to Syracuse in 1992, but we got them back in 1993, 43-0. Yeah, that's the year we actually went undefeated. That was one of the great West Virginia teams. I remember that game, actually. Thanks for bringing that up. 100%.
That was twice that we had beaten Syracuse to make our undefeated season, because Syracuse was almost always the last game of the year. 1988, they were last game of the year, and we beat them to go 11-0. And then in '93, we went 11-0 as well after beating them. So,
Anthony Zappin, thank you for the $5 donation. Says WU hasn't had a rival for over a decade. Yes, that's actually true when you think about it. Since joining the Big 12, thanks to ESPN and the ACC plundering the Big East. And like I said earlier, teams have figured out a way to keep playing their rivals, even though they're not in the same conference. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out for West Virginia. You think about all the teams that don't play West Virginia anymore, they still get to play each other because they all went to the ACC together. So it was West Virginia that got screwed out of, playing their rivals every year. That was a great comment. Florida Gator. Oh, we're a Florida fan. Here we go. Thank you for the $5 donation. WU's only rival is Marshall. That's just not true. WU is a JUCO compared to academic powerhouse like Pitt and Virginia Tech. This has to be a Pitt or Virginia Tech fan disguised or something, because that's we don't have good academics, but I've tried to explain it. I'll try to say this a little bit slower this time. So West Virginia has a very high acceptance rate. That's one of their knocks. The second thing is we don't have any affiliate universities that we can send a lower academic score. Both of those academics too. Those two things combined is what kills our academics. So if we can figure out some affiliates, and I don't think the acceptance rate is going to go anywhere. So that's just going to have to be something that we swallow. But the other thing, I think that could get figured out somehow. What do you think about that, Joey?
Well, it's a state law that West Virginia has to accept students in state of West Virginia.
That's done.
Because their goal is to educate Appalachia. So that's their biggest goal, is to educate Appalachia. So they accept everybody in the state of West Virginia. So that hurts, because if you have like Pitt has lower schools that they can send them to. So they'll take about anybody from Pennsylvania, but they'll send them to a lower school, and then they'll bring them in when their grades get up there, and that helps.
Gotcha.
Them. But it hurts a team like West Virginia. So,
and I want to chime in here too, because my alma mater has been raked over the coals over the realignment stuff about all this, kind of things. I will let you know. I work for a tech organization. Okay, do you know how long we look at a resume and where you graduated from? No, seriously, how long do you think we do? We do this. Boom, done. I do think I have my brother's girlfriend is a Princeton grad. It's the better thing about going to those big schools is not even what you know, it's who you know, and creating a affiliate and a national group of people that you can bounce off of and things like that. That is something that Boise State, a young university, only been around since 1965, has. Like you said, West Virginia, their mission is to educate Appalachia. And I think that Pitt and Virginia Tech, I'm telling you, I watch out for Pitt. Mr. Florida Gator, you're not going to like this comment one bit. So the Pittsburgh market is well encompassed in the Big Ten. I do not think anybody in Pittsburgh is clamoring for not getting any viewership of Big Ten games. If, and I bet when, the ACC folds, the Big Ten is not going to be there to catch Pitt. And unless the ACC wants to go, unless the SEC wants to go north, it looks like you're going to be latched at the belt with good old West Virginia. I'm telling you right now.
And that's not a bad thing for Pitt. I mean, if you keep the teams as is for the Big 12, and you add some more good brands, not the best of the best, but good brands, a Louisville, a Pitt, maybe a Syracuse if you have a chance, and NC State, that's a pretty good conference. I think that's good enough. If it gets whittled down to three of the major conferences, I think the Big 12, adding those teams would be a big enough, good enough conference to get included into the conversation. So it's not like, we're throwing shade on Pitt. That's not a bad option if you're not going to get selected by the Big Ten, and that's not going to happen. Sorry, because you don't add enough value when it comes to football. You just don't. It's the same reason why the Big Ten wouldn't accept West Virginia. So we're kind of in the same boat, and it's the same reason why the SEC is not going to accept Pitt either. So it is what it is, and just be thankful that there's a third option if it does come down to that. And it might – the chances of it actually coming down to that pretty high. Now, as far as right now, I don't know. Grant of rights got to get figured out. But 2036, mark your calendar. That if the grant of rights can't get figured out, things are gonna happen around 2036. I promise you. And so just brace yourself. If you really hate the Big 12 that much, brace yourself because it is a real possibility. I wanted to get to Anthony Zappin. I think he addressed the affiliate thing as well. Thank you for the $5 donation. It says WU does have satellite or affiliate campuses. It was WU Beckley, i.e. WU Tech, and WU Kaiser. I don't think it's what he's thinking of. They're not affiliated in that way as far as, yeah.
Right. WU
I understand why he said that, though, because it does have that in the title, but they can't send their lower academics to those schools.
No, it doesn't work like that.
John Waffle H2P says, well, first of all, thank you for the $4.99 donation. Says Pitt is AAU. That's correct. We have rich alumni, including yours truly. That's correct as well. But I wasn't talking about that. We're talking about what the boat that the Big Ten is in right now is they're looking at schools that can bring in this much. It's not like, oh, you're pretty good. You bring in this much. We'll bring you in. Here's the bar. There's a lot of schools that's not going to meet that bar. West Virginia, one of those schools. Pitt, one of those schools. Louisville, one of those schools. Good schools, really good schools, high caliber, not throwing shade. I threw my team in there as well. But we're not up here. We're not in Ohio State. We're not in Michigan. We're not at USC. We're not at Oregon. We're not at Washington. It is what it is. And maybe the Big 12 can be known as that destination of teams that have a chance, but they're not, at the top. They're not elite. Not group of five.
I want to throw something else in there. We talk about this conference realignment, and we talk about it hurting college football and taking away college football as we know it. And, if we go back to conference realignment before, when the ACC took teams out of the Big East, and then West Virginia moved to the Big 12, Texas A&M left the Big 12, Missouri left the Big 12. That's a lot of rivalries that got hurt because Texas and Texas A&M is a big rivalry. Not played much anymore, hardly at all. So, West Virginia Pitt don't play anymore. So conference realignment hurts college football. So I know we're all sitting here saying, well, I want my team over here in this conference. But actually, you need to think, the more you change around, the more college football gets hurt.
All right. I'm going to read this super chat, okay? Florida Gator says this. Appreciate the donation. I really do. I really, really do. Thank you for the $2. Pitt will definitely be at the bar. Okay, so let's compare. Is Pitt on the same level as USC? Tim, I know you're a USC fan, but I mean the answer is clear. They're not, right?
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry, I was reading chat.
Pitt on the same level as USC as far as bringing value to the Big Ten or the SEC.
Wait, I mean, are we really asking that question? I think everyone in the chat even knows that. Well,
yeah. Or
right.
What? Hold on. What about okay, so the SEC went after Oklahoma and Texas. Is Pitt on the level of Oklahoma or Texas?
Nope.
Okay, the SEC is talking about Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia, and Clemson. Is Pitt on the same level as those teams?
Yeah, no.
No. The answer is no. And that's not, again, that is not us trash talking Pitt. There's going to be a day for that. The backyard brawl is coming, and trust me, there's going to be a crap ton of trash talk. It's going to happen. This isn't the day right now. I mean, it might turn into the day. I don't know. But that's not what this conversation is about. It's just not – you're not on the same level. If you ask it – sorry for the loud pop. I hit my microphone. When I get excited, I throw my hands around. They're not on the same level. And that's not saying – like, I know they're thinking that I'm throwing shade and I'm saying they're a bad – I'm not. You're just not on that level. Anthony Zappin, thank you for the $10 donation. Oh. Here you go, Joey. Joey is completely wrong. WVU brought in WU Tech in 2015. Look at the WU Tech Wikipedia page. It is a divisional campus of WVU. Same thing with Potomac State. WU bought it, and it became WU Kaiser. Yeah, all those are true.
Okay. but it doesn't mean that they can send their lower classification students there. WVU Tech,
Right.
the name Tech in the name Tech, it's a technical school. It's there to serve a purpose. It's not there to.
Wait, here's a good example. Georgia
if
can't send their lower academics to Georgia Tech.
Exactly. It doesn't work like that. So you got to look at it that way. There's and the Kaiser school's exactly the same way. It's there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's more for nursing and things. Am I right? I'm not sure. I can't remember.
They're for specific purposes. It's not for like a general, hey, you can send your lower academics to us. It's specific purposes. And it doesn't count.
If you want to be a lawyer,
academics.
Right. If you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, and you go in and you can't cut it and they put you out of school, it's not like they can put you in one of these schools until you can get your academics up and bring you back to WVU to study and be a lawyer. Now, you could do it yourself, I guess, and bring your grades up and maybe get back in, but they're not going to do it.
Exactly right. That's exactly. And we're not even actually disagreeing with you, Anthony. All you said in the super chat is correct. It's just how it relates to the actual affiliation and being able to send those lower academics too. That's the difference.
Well, in Golden Blue Dude, I actually wanted to comment on something because this is a bigger conversation with this situation right here, where there is nothing. And the thing about this is that we're having super, super high level conversations about, academic fit and geographical region and TV market. But at the very, very bottom of it is fans who are arguing with the same fervor they have of games. So don't worry. We all see this. It's just part and parcel with the territory, because then now let's just say as an example. So Boise State has, done a really good job in the Mountain West, but now Colorado State can come in and be like, well, actually we're a better match for this conference because our academic standing is blah, blah, blah. All it is just a retransmitted version of affiliation and tribalism to grade point averages and media market sizes and this and that. But so I say that to say, Mr. Pitt fan, I hope that you do get your invite to the table. I'm just betting. Don't be surprised if that table is next to West Virginia. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I love that rivalry, and I hope it goes on forever. I hope they need to figure out a way to where there's not one single year that it takes another break. I mean, it's been over a decade, and just not myself. I mean, I'm talking to other Pitt fans. I'm talking to my fellow West Virginia fans. It's going to be nuts. It's sold out very, very fast. They're expected an overflow of capacity. I think it holds like 66, 67,000, something like that. And they're expecting over 70,000. They sold standing room only tickets at crazy, ridiculous prices. And all those got gobbled up as well. And I'm hearing, and I was not just hearing, this has been confirmed. Okay, guys, this has been confirmed. There have been West Virginia fans that have bought Pitt season tickets just so they could go to the backyard brawl. Think about that. That's when you know it's a real rivalry, and that's how you know it's been a long time, and people are desperate to see this game. It's definitely a must-watch game if you're either fan base. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, they are. They're everybody's waiting to see this game in West Virginia and around Pennsylvania too. I would say, especially in the Pittsburgh area. But another thing too is also be sure and look at the television market for Pitt. It's split 3 ways between Penn State, Pitt, and West Virginia. And so you're saying that you're going to meet that bar and you could get in the Big Ten. You bring a lot. Actually, the Big Ten already has that market.
So now you shifted to the SEC. John Waffle HTP, thank you for the $1.99 donation. Pitt would be beneficial for the SEC expansion. Do we really need to go there, guys?
Technically, if the mission was get new markets, because like we had mentioned before, that adding Cal doesn't actually really help the Big Ten, but what it does is gives them the new market. I think that if the Big Ten pushes it to the point to where they have a West Coast group, they have maybe a down south group. Maybe the SEC does get a little crazy there because I think that first of all, here's the better question: is that if UNC and Virginia are available, and they have to choose between the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't think they automatically pick the SEC. I think they might be like, Big Ten, what do you think about this? Because they're the next to, AAU status and this and that. So there's a lot of movement here. I think that they could be beneficial to the SEC. Whether or not they are, again, that comes down to Greg Sankey. We'll see if he wants to keep up with the Joneses. That you actually probably hope that he keeps up with the Joneses with Kevin Warren in that instance, because then they would be in play there. But ultimately, though, I'm telling you, the Big 12 would not be a bad option, man. They've got a lot of teams out there. They're going to add more than likely a West Coast wing. They're going to add an East Coast wing, and we'll almost have 3 big national conferences,
Yeah, I would agree with that. And if we want to talk about being beneficial for the SEC, honestly, the SEC is a different animal. If we're going to talk about the SEC, West Virginia is actually above Pitt, because I've looked at the fan base rankings as far as size, revenue, eyeballs, all that stuff. West Virginia is solidly above Pitt by almost 1 million viewers. Think about that. I mean, we almost double them up on the fan base. The thing is, even in their own city, the city of Pittsburgh, there's a lot of West Virginia alumni there. And I've mentioned this in previous live streams, that West Virginia is number 13 in the nation as far as fans and alumni living outside of the state. So because of the poor economy in West Virginia, you can't judge the fan base by the population of the state. There's a large chunk that lives outside the state. So if you want to talk about teams that would bring value to the SEC, West Virginia would be above Pitt. If we're talking about the Big Ten, then Pitt would be above West Virginia, but there's a bunch of teams above Pitt. They don't meet the bar of the Big Ten. SEC is a completely different conversation. And in fact, not Oklahoma, Texas, but the realignment before that, West Virginia was on the table. It was going to be Texas A&M and either Missouri or West Virginia. And in fact, the SEC had the invite prepared for West Virginia, and ESPN stepped in and said, no, we want the Kansas City TV market. Give us Missouri. So they handed it to Missouri. And then even after Oklahoma and Texas, I'm hearing that the 4 teams with the ACC, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia. Then after that, it's going to be West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Miami, and Louisville. That's on the next branch under that, unless they bump Miami up. If there's a danger of Miami going to the Big Ten, I could see the SEC bumping Miami into the Virginia spot and then moving Virginia back down to the next 4. But the SEC is a completely different animal. West Virginia would be above Pitt. In the Big Ten, Pitt would be above West Virginia. But there's still a huge gap between Pitt and some other choices that are still out there. This argument comes down to who's left on the board. We're not talking about, how good, Pitt is in particular. They are a good brand. They're one of the better brands in the ACC. But compared to brands that are left, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, there's like 6 teams above them that the SEC would prefer when it comes to that.
Can you tell that the big backyard brawl is only 9 days away? Can you tell?
Yes,
I can tell.
Okay, this super chat here on the screen.
I'll let
Anthony,
you read it.
we appreciate you. We appreciate you telling our super chat. It says Georgia Tech is owned by Georgia. WVU Tech is owned by WVU. Okay, all that's true, and was renamed WVU Beckley. Maybe, I don't know about that, but maybe. Okay. WVU explicitly tells students with low ACTs to apply to the Beckley Kaiser and then transfer to WVU. Apply. Okay. So that's exactly what I said last time. They can apply on their own and bring their scores up. So that's exactly what I said, Anthony. They can apply on their own and bring their scores up and then make application for WVU. So
right. That's what
I did say that, right?
Yes, you did.
Say that.
I'm going to look into that more intently. That way we can do a video on that and explain, everything that's involved. That's a long conversation in and of its own.
And if we're completely wrong, we'll admit to it. But
yeah, because it is an important conversation. It is an important conversation.
Yeah.
So, and if we look into it and we find out that we're wrong, then we will say so for sure.
As of last year, that was not the case.
Conversation. Yeah.
Right.
And
As of
it's
last
great
year,
that we
that
have
was not the
Jake on
case.
here too, because I know Boise State fans can directly relate to that because, a lot of people are like, why didn't the Pac-12 accept Boise State? And the argument has always been academics, and that's so aggravating.
Well, it is aggravating, but at the same time, there is something you got to remember. If you look at the top universities in the country, in the world, I mean, it's like Harvard, Cambridge, a weird one there, University of Washington, one of the top 10, 20 universities in the country. Stanford is up. The Stanford's endowment is
USC.
$30 billion. So
USC has brought their academics way up. I mean, they're
way up.
top
Way
20
up.
now.
So being associated with all those schools, is definitely an elite class out there. You saw Utah is at it over there. They were an AAU member as well. But yeah, I think the problem is that sports fans, and I'm a sports fan about this too. The sports fans, they think that how you win on the field is all that matters, but there's lots of other factors that go into that. Boise State is a growing university. They've got a lot of things going for them, but again, they've only been handing 4-year degrees out since 1965. It's really hard to associate with Stanford, who is, one of the greatest universities the world has ever seen. But again, Tony Altomare has said it perfectly. He was like, Boise State is adopting the early strategy of Notre Dame and USC. Small schools, build up through football, take that football money, build up the academics, and churn the wheel like that. So that's their process going forward. The Idaho market, like I said, is pretty small. But at the same time, every single viewership dimension that I could see, because you've seen gazillion out there. There's medium.com, there's what Tony Altomare has, there's this, there's that. Every single one has Boise State somewhere in the 50 to 60 range in terms of viewership. So as long as you can't sell anything to people that aren't watching. So people watch Boise State football, maybe not as much as USC, UCLA, Rutgers, this and that. But I didn't mean to mention Rutgers there. But you know what I'm saying? That they are doing the best that they can.
You're so young. You don't have a 100-year, 150-year foundation to build on. So you're doing what you can with what you have with the amount of time that you've been allowed, So check out this super chat. You've officially been compared to Golden Blue. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I don't know about that. Florida Gator, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, who's the guy with the glasses? Hey, this is a great moment for you to plug yourself again. This is the guy. Who are you and where can they find you?
So my name is Jake Posey. I have a football channel on YouTube called Master Football with Jake Posey. I am not vaping. I apologize. As a matter of fact, I've got a bubbly. I've got lemon lime or whatever. So I've got myself a bubbly here.
Nice.
I actually live right behind a liquor store, so I don't have a vape recommendation, but I will probably get, I don't know, maybe like a gin and tonic or a margarita. I know that's kind of a big difference. Look, what do we got right there? What do we got?
That's what I got. This is Charlie Noble brand. It says Charlie's Custard. Basically, it's a vanilla custard based vape. So I don't like anything fruity or super sweet or anything like that. So I go with the custard base. And this particular brand right here, hey, maybe I can get them as a sponsor. We'll look into that. This particular brand right here is the best for me because it doesn't tear you got to replace these coils because they burn out so often. With that juice, saves wear and tear on the coil, so you don't have to buy as many coils to replace. So that's why I like that brand the most. Anthony Zappin, man, he's really into it tonight. Appreciate you, buddy. $20 donation. Here you go. I'm a WVU fan, but the excuse that WVU has poor academics because its mission is to, quote, educate Appalachia, unquote, is wrong. Marshall's mission is to educate Appalachia. WVU's mission is to be the state's flagship research university.
Okay, still a public university, and it's still governed by the state of West Virginia. And the state of West Virginia law says if they want to go to college, they can go.
You have the right.
So if they go and apply at West Virginia University, they can get into West Virginia University. That's state law, and unfortunately, that's probably not going to be changed. And I say unfortunately, that's not unfortunate because a lot of people want to go to college and maybe they don't have the academics to get there to build their A and B students. If they live in the state of West Virginia, they have a chance to go to college, and I think that's great. They don't always survive college, but I think it's great that they get to go. Education is the best thing in the world, and it's the most important thing. we're all here for football. I know that, but education is far more important than football.
You ready for a stat that's going to blow your mind, Tim? The acceptance rate for West Virginia University is it's either, I get this number mixed up sometimes. I have that thing that mixes things around. It's either 86 or 89%, but either one of those figures, that is a massively high acceptance rate for a public university. But that is, I know for sure it's above 85%, but it's either 86 or 89%. That is a super high acceptance rate, and that, that's strictly following the mission of, educating Appalachia. So they follow it to a T. That is for sure. And there's some cons to it. We're seeing it right now.
Well, there's again, it's a function and it's a noble charter that they have, basically saying that we're going to take care and educate our state, and I get that. I don't know why people want to take shots at it. I mean, it's not like, and one thing I'll tell you, I've been working. I've worked with guys from degrees from all over the place, and I'll tell you, it's not the guys from the top 25 universities always are the smartest or the best workers. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work that way. There is a lot that goes, like we were talking earlier about the networking, because you're more likely to find some pretty talented people when you go to schools with high selectivity rate. But once you get your first job, they're not looking at where you went to college; they're looking at your resume. And again, I love my USC. I got 2 degrees from USC. I love my USC education, but I got friends that went to Long Beach State, Cal State Long Beach, and I mean, one of my friends is definitely could have gone to any school he wanted to. It's just close. 84% life and choices, man. It's just the way it is. I don't think people should beat it up. But I would go back to the Boise State thing, guys. Hold on, I couldn't let that one comment go. You guys were talking about. Okay, look, I don't want it to come out the wrong way. But the only reason why it's not the only reason why Boise State's not in the Pac-10 or Pac-12 is because of academics. I mean, Boise State has done very well, but when you look at even the programs, in the Pac-12 right now, who do you want to crack on? You want to crack on let's say a team like Oregon State, right? I mean, Oregon State is going to be really good this year, and they've been building for the past 5 years.
Yep.
And my point is that like these schools have won major bowl games, often, not just a couple of times. And there's a lot of really good schools out there, but I mean, I don't think the only reasons why Boise State, it has to do with TV market. It has to do with a bunch of things. You know what I mean? And this is not to crack on Boise State. I don't look at the Pac-12 like other people think. The Pac-12 just once. All of a sudden, the narrative now is like three or 4 years of bad football. All of a sudden, the Pac-12 is just some like referred to like the MAC. You know what I mean? It's pretty absurd. It's not a Group of 5 conference. It's down, and conferences have been down, and I don't think that they're going to stay down. When you have programs like Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal, even Arizona State, once you get the right coach, people don't realize how much talent's down in Arizona. The fact that Herm didn't do more with all that talent down there is just a testament that he was the bad choice. So, going back to the whole thing, I just say Boise State is on its way up, but I don't think we really are going to speak like Boise State in the same way I would even talk about like a Washington State or an Oregon State. It's just because they've been proven for the better part of my entire lifetime. And you look at when USC was last good years ago. The only teams that were beating USC, it was Pac-10 schools. It was Oregon State, Washington State. It was those schools with Mike Price, and with Mike Riley at Oregon State. These were good football programs, good teams. So things go in waves, and I think Boise State has done in my lifetime as much as almost any football program I know to jump from obscurity up to very respectable level. But you guys have had some trouble with coaches and retaining coaches. That might continue to plague you guys at Boise State. What do you think?
So I don't disagree with anything you said there, and absolutely that's true. But you have to remember that with the big thing with the Pac-12 the last couple of years is that their flagship was down.
I'll be right back, guys.
It was kind of like there was a power vacuum that wasn't taken. Oregon kind of moved their way into it, but post Pete Carroll, there was a little bit of that power vacuum. So that's where people are like, oh, Pac-12 is down, Pac-12 is down. When in reality, like most conferences have a flagship and then they have their supporting cast members. We only care about Texas A&M football when they beat Alabama. Texas A&M thinks they're great, but we only care about when they beat Alabama. So like you said, they do lose to Pac-12 schools. Don't get me wrong. I used to live in Clarkston, Washington, which is just south of Pullman, and Washington State has been, top 10 ranked in the last 5 or 6 years. I think when they had Mike Leach up there, they were at a top 10 ranking at one point. Don't get me wrong on anything like that, but I do know that the more that I've studied conference realignment, the more that I've seen these things, there's a couple of things that degrade there. Like you said, how many people watch? That's very important because, like you said, the advertisers don't sell the people that don't watch. How many people watch? What's the educational institution for the universities to align with each other? Another one here that this is important that I think that, as an example, like Cal recently is a big example of this, is that you'll notice the teams that are good at football are the teams where the athletic directors want them to be good at football. You had mentioned before where Miami, I don't think it was actually Miami, I think it was USC. They wanted to be an academic school, and they had kind of pulled back from that. And then they were like, you know what, screw this. Let's get Lincoln Riley. Let's bring him in. Miami kind of did the same thing where Miami's like, well, we want to be the Harvard of the South. And they're like, well, you guys were Miami when you were bringing in a whole bunch of, Ed Reeds and Jeremy Shockeys and things like that. So Boise State's academics need to improve, obviously. Like I said, Tony Altomare always champions us. They've doubled their research in the last 5 years. They have. They're doing the best that they can. Again, what was that? They've got 3 BCS bowls, 3 New Year's Six bowl wins in the last 15 years or something like that. So they're doing what they can. But yeah, there's several institutional things, not institutional, but structural things that are holding them back. San Diego State has that market. They've got a lot of things there. They are pretty, it aligns more from all of the other things on the field. I love my boys. Like you said, they do have a hard time holding onto their coaches. And if they don't have a hard time holding onto their head coach, they lose all their assistants. I mean, every year, every time they have a good offense, offensive coordinator's taken. Good defense, defensive coordinator's taken. And Brian Harston, we thought he was going to be there for a while, but you get an opportunity to coach in the SEC. He leaves too. And yeah,
but I think y'all dodged a bullet with him. I don't think he was. I don't think he was that good of a coach, and I think he's going to sink like a rock. I mean, he already did last year in Auburn, and his flaws are being exposed. Boise State, they didn't do like terrible or miss a bowl or anything like that, but you could see a steady decline under Brian Harsin. And it actually, to be honest with you, it shocked the heck out of me whenever Auburn hired Brian Harsin. I was like, what are you thinking? He's not. So I actually think y'all dodged a bullet with him, but y'all did have some good coaches behind him for sure.
He's going to have to watch out because every coach in the SEC West has one thing looming over their job security, and his name is Nick Saban. Every single coach that goes out there, how many coaches have just been churned because they walk in there and the AD says, I want you to compete with Alabama. And Alabama says, all right. And then a couple years in, boom, fired. So that's what he has to compete with. I mean, he had him last year and couldn't quite pull it out. I remember that game. It was like 7-6 or something like that.
Yeah. And well, Kirby Smart was offered a contract to become the wealthiest college football coach. Well, there is a clause in Nick Saban's contract where if a coach is being paid more than him, they immediately can renegotiate and make him the highest paid. And that's what's happened today. Kirby Smart, I think it was like a month ago or something like that, highest paid college football coach. Well, that clause kicked in, and today I guess it was signed. Nick Saban, of course, once again, the highest paid college football coach. And as long as he's the head coach at Alabama, even if somebody passes him for a month or whatever, that clause is in there. He will be the highest paid head coach in all of college football. There's nothing you can do about it. It's in his contract. But earlier, Florida Gators said the only thing I know about USC is varsity blues. Well, I would encourage you to look up the early 2000s USCs. Look up how many national championships USC has, how many Heisman Trophy winners USC has. I mean, they are one of the few blue bloods of college football, which that is a select few, and nobody can be added to that. We've already had that discussion. It's in the past. So you have a lot of research to do, my friend. John, go ahead. Go ahead, Tim.
You did what a lot of people do. It wasn't just the early 2000s. This wasn't like a 3-year run Pete Carroll had. I mean, he won 8 straight BCS bowls. He played in 2 BCS games. He should have played in 4 or 5, like legitimately. And if there was a playoff, USC would have been in the playoffs every single year. But it's not even that. I mean, even Kiffin and Helton had, in that time, those 2 coaches, there were 3 top 10 finishes and 2 top 5 finishes during that time. So it's not like USC fell away. I mean, unless you're like one of these schools like LSU, Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, whatever, we'll put our numbers up. Even this, one of our worst decades ever, we'll put our numbers up with pretty much anyone out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird when people crack on USC. Yeah, we're down. We're down by USC and Alabama and Ohio State standards. We're not down by 80% of the schools out there standards. You know what I mean? So again, when people throw that around, I just kind of shake my head. I'm like, yeah,
memories
okay,
are short, my friend. Memories are really, really short. But I think I remember those Pete Carroll days. I remember you guys almost won 3 national championships in a row, a feat that I don't think even Alabama has done. But yeah, those teams were different, dude.
Well, in 2016, USC beat a really good Penn State team in the Rose Bowl and finished third in the country. How many fans out there are saying their team finished 3rd in the country in the past 10 years? I mean, so we're down by USC standards, but it's not like we're an impoverished program, for God's sake. Last 2 years have been bad.
I can't wait.
Overall,
I can't wait till we get that super chat that just went in the chat. I can't wait till we get that super chat because it's going to show.
Let me blow this one real quick. Let me blow through this one real quick because I see it. John Waffle HTP, thank you for the $49 donation. Says, guys, the reality is the Big 12 would hurt Pittsburgh academically. Whether that's true or not is not the point. The point is you wouldn't have a choice. You wouldn't have a choice.
I would put
because the Big 10 is not going to take you, and the SEC is not going to take you. You're going to the Big 12 if that does happen. Now here we go.
Randy Moss was the best player ever to go to WVU. Oh my gosh! Now that shows how much of a troll you are, and maybe even a bandwagon fan. I hate to say that for the Gator, but Randy Moss did not go to West Virginia University. But thank you very much.
Here you go. Follow up.
Randy Moss put WVU on the map.
This is getting bad here.
Oh my gosh. Well, he's really on this, isn't he?
It was actually Major Harris that put West Virginia on the map. It was Major Harris that did that.
Randy Moss went to Florida State and then was put off the team and went to Marshall. He did not come to West Virginia University, but
no. Never played one snap.
I don't.
There you go, guys. There you go. That's the stuff.
But you paid $2. Thank you, Florida Gator, for the $2.
Yes. Well, not just 2. I think it was a 4 total.
It was a couple of them,
2 and 2. Yeah. So we appreciate it supporting the channel. But I mean, you were incorrect, but we definitely appreciate you supporting the show. It was actually Major Harris that put West Virginia on the map. 1988, went undefeated, played for national championship, lost to Notre Dame, which is crazy when you think about it because that means, think about this: the last time Notre Dame won a national championship was beating West Virginia. That really let that sink in for a minute.
And you can go back further. You can go back further than that because we had Sam Huff back in the 50s. We had Jeff Hostetler and Gerald Talley in the early 80s. So
Hostetler put West Virginia on the map in perspective to the NFL. He was one of our most successful players that transitioned into the NFL. So that's how he relates to everything. But guys, this is a great show, but unfortunately, it's still a school day, so it's about that time for me to put the kids to bed, make sure they get their proper rest for school tomorrow. Trying to be a good parent over here, trying to be a good parent. But I had a good time. Did y'all have a good time?
Yeah, I had a good time. I kept leaving. I just installed a new washing machine upstairs, and they kept making weird noises. That's on a test run right now, and I'm not Mr. Mechanical, but I mean, I put that thing in there because they wanted me to wait until Saturday. I'm like, shit, I got things to do. I can't wait till Saturday. So, we'll see.
Here's the clue, guys. Here's the clue. It's bedtime when you start hearing the door open a lot. That's so from now on, whenever you have a live show, when y'all Golden Blue has to start wrapping it up soon because that's what that means.
Hey Tim, it could be worse. You could have asked. You could have had Pigskin Pete come over and put that washing machine in, so it could be worse.
I know about his armadillo troubles. I don't know about his washing machine troubles.
And that's the first.
No, he didn't have washing machine troubles, but he was hanging the TV and drilled a hole into all of his water lines and stuff. So
Oh,
Oh my God, no,
oh. Bless his heart
Oh,
on that
man.
one.
so
that's not good.
That's tough. Pigskin Pete, you know we love you. You know you love you. That
yeah, we do.
if I did that, I would expect people to talk about it too. Just to be honest with you, that's
Yeah, he's my favorite.
That falls on the epic side of the scale. That's an epic fail right there. That's
If
That's
you
a rough
guys aren't following Pete's Twitter account, dude, it's always good for at least 2 good laughs a day.
He's
So
on fire.
You
He's on
you
fire.
guys got if you guys are on Twitter, you should really check him out because
I like the bro TikToks as well. I like the bro TikTok videos he puts out as well. He's got some entertaining stuff. But like we do every live show, we like to end the show with doing our last word for everybody. So we will. There's the door again, guys. I'm telling you, it is that time. Tim, we'll start with you. What is your last word of the day?
Last word of the day is I can't wait for football. I mean, regardless of your team, let's enjoy let's enjoy this last decade. I think that we can recognize football and don't take each year for granted. Just again, we're right there. I know anyone here on the afternoon or evening on YouTube. I know everyone's tuning into the week 0 games. So
I am.
Let's enjoy it. You guys have a great week.
Absolutely. Well said, man. Well said. That was an awesome last word. Joey, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and give you the last word. I like to give our guests the last word for the guests.
Absolutely, it's fine with me. So we are 8 days, 23 hours, 19 minutes, and 35 seconds from kickoff of the Backyard Brawl. And so, the off season is coming to an end. Football's kicking off this week. 8 days of the Backyard Brawl. It doesn't get any better than this. Glad to see all the people in here tonight. Hey, listen, we've got some great drawings coming up. If anybody that super chats this month, has a chance to win a trail cam valued at about $120. And anybody that makes a purchase in our store, in our web store, you can go to goldenbluedude.com. And anybody that makes a purchase in our merchandise store gets a chance to win a pair of night vision binoculars valued at about $180. These were donated by Traveling Fools. These were donated by Traveling Fools. Be sure and sub up Traveling Fools and tell him thank you for the gifts for Golden Blue Dude. So that's it for me, guys. Until tomorrow. Jake, we'll see you later, buddy. Thanks for being here.
You got it, Joey.
Well said, Joey. So think about that. You could win a prize just for trash talking in a super chat. Now, you can't beat that. So I'm going to give you the last word of our guest. First, last time, tell everybody where they can find you, who you are, and then get into your last word. Absolutely.
So it's Master Football with Jake Posey. Just look up Jake Posey. You should be able to find me on YouTube. I have a Twitter and Instagram and a Facebook, but at the same time, mostly Twitter's where I'm at. I do some community posting and things like that. So the best way to get a hold of me, watch YouTube, leave a comment, trash talk and all. I appreciate it.
Exactly. Good job, buddy. Any last word for your Boise State Broncos this year? What do you expect?
So I love my Boise State Broncos. They play on September 3rd at Oregon State. The teams that was said.
That's tough.
It's going to be a tough game. Again, it's going to be, Pac-12 after dark. It'll be tough. This is a message out to my one friend. My one friend is a Nebraska alum. I am watching because I heard this about the NFL before, and I'm going to translate this over to college football. The NFL is better when the Raiders are better. I know that's self-aggrandizing because I like the Raiders. It's better when the Cowboys are better because everybody hates the Cowboys. It's just a better league when that happens. College football is better when that red team out there in Nebraska is good. I am going to be watching them. I want to say it's big noon kickoff. I'm hoping for in Dublin, Ireland, the Nebraska Cornhuskers versus the Northwestern Wildcats. I'm hoping for my friend for a Nebraska victory for the sake of college football in Nebraska.
I 100% agree with you. And on top of that, I think if Nebraska loses to Northwestern, Scott Frost will be immediately fired after the game.
It at least will be short.
Yes, exactly. Good job, buddy. We will most definitely have you on the show again. I hope you had a lot of fun.
I had a ton of fun, man.
It's all about having fun. All right, man. Good job. We'll see you next live show. That's it, guys. We're going to wrap it up. Appreciate everybody that stopped by. Appreciate Jake, Tim, and Joey for joining me on the live stream. I think we actually meant to share the stream in the chat, but we just kind of got on a roll with our own conversation. So sorry about that. We'll share it tomorrow. But hopefully you still had a good time. Thank you to everybody that commented in the comments section, everybody that contributed to the show, super chat, everybody that liked. By the way, if you haven't liked the video, on the way out, please like the video, because even though it's not live anymore, it still helps the video. So on the way out, hit the like button. Helps the video. Good night for now. Tomorrow, don't know when I'm going to go live. So if you're a subscriber and a viewer, hit that notifications. That way you know when I'm going to go live. Life is crazy, and I just fit it in whenever I can. So there you go. If you're not a subscriber, hey, if you're a diehard college football fan, I'm telling you, this is the YouTube channel for you. Yes, I'm a West Virginia fan, but I cover all of college football. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hey, if you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe. How about that? So there you go. Anyways, hope y'all have a good rest of your Tuesday evening. Golden Blue is out, and I will see you tomorrow.